Okay. Dear everyone, I'm glad to see you. Good evening to all of you, Yulia, Darren, Roman, Maria. Thanks that you're with your camera on, Valeria. Okay, let me just add. So many people are here online in contrast to Monday class where we had only 11 people. I assume that, well, the majority prefer online. Okay, we will discuss that. Once again, you're very welcome, and I'm glad to see you. It seems like we for ages haven't met each other, and I hope that you're gonna that I'm gonna meet you in person next week. Up to now, research seminar. You have received my announcement about your next presentation on methodology, and this presentation is going to be just before your pre-defense. Right now we're scheduling the exact date, whether it's going to be in the end of April or beginning of May after the holidays, but there is not that much time left, and during pre-defense we expect that you present some results of your work, and I do not use the word preliminary results, but well, somehow refined, rough, but results. Do you hear me well? Is everything fine? Right? Yeah. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Okay. Today a lot we need to discuss and do right now. You should see my slide. Darren, nod me if you see it, because I here, let me just, okay. Now I see everyone. Once again, glad to see you, and it will be more grateful if you could turn on your video for me to see you. We did for our offline classes, there are going to be two rules. First rule, we're going to have participants list for me to track who is attending classes. Right now, well, I have recording, everything is fine, but for, well, like internal reporting, we're going to have this piece of paper, and another one, there are going to be, for me to remember you like in person, in the flesh, name plaques, like I did with your fellow group mates on Tuesday, where you have your name. I will distribute paper, which is obviously very valuable right now in Russia, white paper, for you just to write your name there. Okay. Anonymous Paul, I collected several organizational questions that I would like you to fulfill. Please do this right now. I will open it. Just a second. I have it in. I have it. Polls. Getting to know this one. Now you have the poll. With quiz, with questions about where you have to respond as a student. These are not about the course. These are more about your experience with the midterm paper, studying at the program, collaboration with your group mates, your research advisor. Please select one, respond from the list, for me to understand the general picture. First question, my midterm paper progress. So how complete do you feel in general, just subjectively, just select an interval, your midterm paper is. I work on my midterm paper individually in the group of 3 people or 2 people. It is also important for me to understand, because right now I'm just combining everything and they need to understand who is working with whom. Are my research questions, that's a tricky question, based on the extensive literature review and the found research gap? Just double checking, because this is one of the mistakes that I have found. Number 4, my midterms papers methodology section progress from 0 to 100. Since in 11 days you have the deadline for that, I need to understand how completed do you feel your methodology section is. Number 5, my midterm paper. In my midterm paper, I'm going to use the following research design. Today, we're going to talk about different research designs and what have you chosen, quantitative, qualitative, mixed methods maybe, or you haven't decided yet. I have one question on mixed methods, two responses on mixed methods, 3 responses on mixed methods. We need to discuss what is mixed methods then. My degree of awareness of the study activities in the program, 40, 60, somewhat undecided, one person. Degree of my collaboration with my research advisor on the midterm paper topic on the scale from 0 to 100. Research advisor is your best supporter, help source, and so on. The more you collaborate, the better. And well, of course, you have to be proactive. Which format of study, online, offline, hybrid, do I de facto, in fact, in reality, stick to right now? Offline, online, online because of personal reasons, online, but soon will be offline. Please select one. It is important for me to understand where are we in terms of classes organization. My evaluations on the level of difficulty within the master's program on the scale from 0 to 100, and do combine study with master's program with the work, because well, control question in order to understand for me what's going on. Okay, if you did that, let's give some more time. I see that only 10 people out of 26. Please do participate. Those who have finished, Maxim, I see your message about Maria. Okay, very good. Welcome, both of you. Next thing, I would ask you to go to those who have finished to our Mira board. Let me share with you where it is right now. It should be in my announcement. Please double check your LMS regularly, because there are going to be a bunch of announcements on knowledge management course. So traditionally, I have a lot of communications with students on this course. In Mira, those who have finished the poll, those who have not, please do that. Please go to the, well, research module for day 1. This is the new Mira board, because I understood that the previous ones got to be like very extensive. As far as I understood, there are going to be up to 12 topics in this group, but might be more. Please select any number and please select any number and fill in the table. Research questions, thesis topic, your current thesis topic, the latest one, which you're gonna schedule with master office, but the current one that is going to be like the latest version of it, and group members. Those who have finished Ahmar and corporate social responsibility, please drag yourself into next to a specific number. Numbering is important for us, so just select any number. And preferably someone please choose 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, not the last ones, so that we do not do additional work. And polls.
Excuse me, can you
Yes.
please share the link for the Miro board once more?
Can just a second.
Thank you.
I sent it in to Maxim. Yes, here in the chat, the link is available for everyone. Please check. While you are filling up your thesis topic, your research questions, please be reminded that 1 to 3 research questions, 3 maximum. Usually it's 1 or 2 research questions. You could have sub-research questions. It is better. No need to do a lot of research questions. And also, please do remember that we have research questions that allow us to narrow down our research, and we have hypotheses which are only relevant for quantitative research methods, survey, secondary data analysis, experiment, right? So these are different things. Please fill in this table during like the first part of our class today. Let me see the poll. What do we have? 24 people plus Maxim. It's gonna be 20. We're 2 of you. It's gonna be 25 plus 1 who haven't finished. Are we waiting for someone? Please let me know, and then I will finish the. Can you joined later? Now, have you fulfilled?
Sorry?
Have you fulfilled the quiz?
Yes, the anonymous poll, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I did.
Thank you. Okay, let's finish then. Right now, I guess you could see the outcome results. Do you see, right? The results of the poll. Thank you. Midterm paper progress. I see 20 to 40, less than half or half for the majority. Okay, 7 people less than 20%. Please mind your time, be very accurate here. 7 people work individually, I thought so, okay. And in the group, 17 people. Okay, groups of 3, the majority. Okay, research questions based on extensive literature review and the found research gap. I saw with Anastasia Yurievna the fishbone diagram. Yes, Stas, you mean share what? Anonymous poll or Miro board? As for anonymous poll, I cannot relaunch it. As for the Miro link, it's there in the chat. My midterm papers methodology section progress. Less than 20 or 20, 40, 40, 60, but there are 3 people who have done. Okay, great for these people, but the majority, okay, we're gonna work today, well, extensively. Quantitative, 11, mixed research design qualitative, only qualitative, 3, mixed methods, 1 undecided, and 9 people, almost half, well, half of people, 12 out of 24, mixed methods and qualitative methods. Those who have selected mixed methods, 9 people, could you please share with me what elements of mixed methods you are going to use, what's going to be there? For example, survey and in-depth interviews, or experiment and the case study. Anyone, just for us to understand what's going to be there. Those who have selected the mixed methods research. I do not remember, Darren, it was your case, no? Or it's going to be quantitative?
Yeah, we do have mixed methods. Our plan is to both have survey data that is open-ended, as well as like something like a Likert scale quantitative results.
Survey data with open questions as qualitative.
Yeah, as qualitative.
And for
And-
quantitative methods, what's going to be secondary data or what?
So quantitative, we have a couple of like A/B testing kind of polls. So they have to choose competing results, and that the number that chooses each should be tallied out. Yeah.
Paul, is it good A/B testing? You mean experiments? Different conditions, and you compare outcomes there.
I think more exactly what I'll describe it is as in exact words is our experiment. We will have a couple of different posters that we'll show them, and they are supposed to rate it, and then each of the different metrics we're going to collect a quantity. Yeah.
Well, this is a striking example of an experiment as the research method. Okay, so experiment plus I wouldn't call this survey if we're talking about open-ended questions, but more as interviews, well, online structured interviews. Interviews could be unstructured, where you just ask open questions while you are sitting in front of each other and you ask about everything. Semi-structured, where you have some preliminary structure of questions, or structured, where you have question 1, 2, 3, and you ask them in order. So in your example, it's going to be like structured interviews.
Yeah, I understood you now. Yeah, you're right. It's more of interview.
Okay, very good. We're going to discuss mixed methods today. Please remind me that this is an important issue, and double check yourself whether your mixed methods, whether you understand them correctly or not. And there are going to be several examples of that, so please be aware of them. My degree of awareness of the study activities in the program, what's going on, deadlines. So 14 people, well, 50 or less, 60 or less, and 10 people above the average. As far as I understand, you have group chat, you have a master's office, you have your group mates, you have your research advisor. Please be proactive in requesting information. Also, please, for our courses, double check your corporate email and LMS announcements, because there are going to be information from my side about the well, general procedures, and also you're going to have pre-defense. Soon we're going to, through the master's office, well, inform you about this. Degree of collaboration with my research advisor, 6 people, well, 13 people, okay, and 11 people, 40 or less. Correct me if I'm wrong, this might be due to the business, right, and high workout of research advisors. But in any case, you could share with him or her your output, your ideas, ask for consultations. If you are stumble with methods of analysis, statistical methods, you could ask your professors in the program for a consultation. Like the responsibility is yours. From what I see here, well, thanks for sharing anonymously still these results. Thing to consider. Which format for study do I de facto stick to right now? Offline, online is approved by the study office, 3 people, okay, these 3 people are here. Online, because of personal reasons, 5 online, but soon be offline. 16, 19 people online, 4 offline. I explored and figured out about the hybrid mode opportunities. Next class, we're gonna try this in the lecture knowledge management, but From what I see, they have a camera, they have microphone, and I have some doubts about the quality of sound and picture, especially if I'm gonna write on the board, how you're gonna hear me and listen to me. Those who have had hybrid mode experience, please do share with me if quality is okay or not. Please write in chat for me just to understand how it's gonna be. Because there I have some doubts. I haven't worked there, and well, it's difficult for me to understand. My evaluation of the level of difficulty within the program. So somewhat 9, no one less than 20. Okay, well, and this is kind of normal thing. Do you combine study? The majority, yes, have work to do. Okay, since you have work to do, we need to get a lot from our classes, a lot to consider. As far as I understand, no one worked with hybrid mode before, and no one was there on the other side of the screen. Okay, if you are, please let me know. Okay, coming back to presentation and what do we need to discuss right now. Okay, please finish up this assignment by the end of the first part by in an hour. Up to now, today, we're going to talk about some organizational procedures. We've started them. There is going to be home assignment, actually, 2 home assignments. One you already know about. These are papers that I would ask you to read by the next class, April 17th. And one assignment, which is going to be the deadline for this Saturday midnight. It's going to be group assignment in Mira. Then there are going to be some, as for the methodology presentation, you already know about the requirements. I uploaded them in LMS with requirements. We're going to talk today about research methods and classification of these methods and how it should look like. So what's the format? And there are going to be, I decided to have, well, maybe 10 minutes before the class or 9 p.m. individual and group consultations on questions you might have and you want to discuss with me, because I received several emails there. Okay, so offline classes, still offline. So those who are going to come from online to offline, please be there. As far as I understood that some people from group 1 also wanted to be a hybrid mode class. I will figure out how to do that. Maybe we're gonna, well, think in any case. For the grading, we're gonna have grading updated next week. You have Nedelsky, Professor Nedelsky part also included in the grading. I looked at AMEC reports that we with Anastasia Yurievna got, not everyone submitted them, but the majority did. Pre-defense dates gonna be available next week, so they're gonna be there. Methodology presentation deadline April 17th, and then we're gonna have in-class presentations on April 18th and 20th. And then the second week, 25th, 27th, like for each group, like 2 days of classes for everyone to present. I ask you personally, everyone to be present during these discussions, because we're going to have theoretical material at each class. And then we're going to have presentations, and then there are going to be feedback for you to consider some, well, helpful, I hope, insights for you to develop your works. As for participation issues, I understand that there might be different conditions, online, offline. In any case, please let me know. Readings for module 4 in LMS, you have a separate section in course materials section. There are 2 papers already uploaded. Please go there. Also, you are at the stage where you have read a bunch of papers, and I saw that from your literature review tables. It's time for us to intensify our learning by reviewing our other papers. Usually for young scholars, participating in conference reviews is a great opportunity to develop your skills of critical thinking, of analyzing your research questions, research gap. This is what we are going to do today. And there is going to be home assignment about that. This is, and we're going to do it today in 2 forms. And there is going to be one more form where it's going to be reviewers for bachelor thesis, bachelor research proposals. And there are going to be, well, management related topics that you're going to review and provide feedback. And in this case, you will hopefully get more things. Up to now, I will straight away for you to be aware of that we are going to have several assignments today. I will do what? I will divide you into subgroups. I would need 5 groups. Okay, I haven't thought there are gonna be so much people, but 26. But okay, 5 groups, and there are gonna be 5 to 6 participants. In one group, in group number 1, Akhmar, Evgenia, Nilan, Alessia, Daria, Yulia. Group number 2, Dalapa is the leader. Group number 3, Eva. Group number 4, Ikachukwu. Group number 5, Lisa. I will open the rooms when we're gonna switch to them, and there is gonna be assignment about that. But up to now, we're gonna analyze.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry to interrupt. Like, you were talking about the groups, and you just called my name, and you said something about the leader. So could you please explain what actually means?
Eva, I randomly divided you into groups in which you are gonna work today, but I haven't opened them, so you do not see anything up to now. But well, I mentioned just the group leaders for them to be aware of that we already have some randomly designed groups. Up to now, no need to worry. I will come back to it. But in these groups today, you are going to analyze research papers of master in management program graduates who used different research designs. Specifically, we're going to look at quantitative research methods, classical survey in marketing, and experiment also in marketing. And I saw that there is one group who are doing, and Darren, in your case, and there are other people who are doing website, experimenting research. So survey, experiment, and we're going to have mixed methods research design. We're going to have case study, single case study, and we're going to have in-depth interviews. So 5 different research designs. You are going to analyze their methodology in Mira. So please double check that you all have access to this link, which is in the chat. Also, they're all going to be available in Mira. So up to now, please just have a look at the topics that we are going to cover. Maybe they are of some interest to you. You see there are 4 topics related to COVID pandemic situation and recent situations, induction programs for remote workers during COVID-19 pandemic. Okay, we have grocery shopping experience and customer satisfaction for COVID-19 pandemic. And if we are talking about marketing, grocery shopping, online shopping, restaurants, and the service sphere, what is the main COVID pandemic shift? The main COVID pandemic shift is that all these for instance, restaurants, if we're talking about restaurants, are going online delivery, delivery services. social media in order to attract new customers, new people, and different kind of promotions, cost reductions, right, in order, well, to get rid of anything, and downsizing. These are pretty much major things there. As for COVID-19 impact in HR, we're going to talk differently. Determinants of self-initiated expatriates relocation decisions in the recent situation, also a topical theme, the case of Russia, in-depth interviews, and case study, in-depth interview and mixed methods research, semi-structured interview. Point number E, determinants of employee turnover, retention practices, the case of Ghana. So context-specific research, mixed methods research. We're going to look how to do analysis of this qualitative data. So these are the topics which are going to work in mini groups today. And this is going to be an assignment for this Saturday. Also, I decided to add up 2 readings for you because I analyzed and looked in Mira for your output in terms of literature review, research questions, well, research motivation and statement, and found out some weak points that I would like you to consider right now. I will show you on the slide, and I would ask you to write in chat which point out of these do you think is relevant for you, just for us to double check, and also I will see whether you are aware of your bottlenecks or not. And also I will try to provide as comments feedback in the Mira boards for your output, fishbone diagrams, literature tables for each group who submitted their tasks. Okay, please look at the following on the next slide. Bottlenecks, and double check whether you have them or not. Research questions are formulated as yes or no. Do HR practices impacts performance? Yes or no question. Yes. This is not a good research question. In what way do HR practices impacts innovative performance of Russian companies? Okay, we're looking at the mechanism. Now need to look for yes or no questions. Try to avoid them. Handbook questions. What are the factors that impact employees' productivity? This is a so-called handbook question. In the handbooks of HRM, you could figure them out. No need to have such questions that could be Googled. Practice-oriented questions. This is specifically if you are interested in coding, programming, or machine learning, developing a machine learning algorithm which will predict something, churn issues, for example. This is a practice-oriented. If you are not doing consulting project which is approved by the actual client company, your research advisor and the board, programs board, then we're still talking about research midterm paper, research, theoretical one, theory. 2 broad research questions. What are the antecedents of company performance? No. Questions are not, research questions are not related to the topic of the thesis or goal. You have one formulation of your topic, and research questions are not related to this topic. They are implied, but this is not enough. You have to use pretty much the same term. If you are talking about antecedents of customer orientation, okay, in what way do organizational form, strategic behavior impacts customer orientation? Research questions do not include terms that are used in the topic of the paper. Well, pretty much the same idea. You might want to use synonyms, well, similar wording and so on, but you have to be consistent. Context argument as a research gap. In this paper, which is assigned, you are gonna read that context argument is a weak argument. If you say we're gonna check this model in Russia. This is a weak argument. Please be aware of that. Lack of theoretical constructs. Some topics have, for instance, the impact of reviews on company performance. Review is not a theoretical construct. Review might be a proxy for customer satisfaction. Agree? It's not about, the theoretical construct, if we're talking about the theoretical work. Feasibility of the study. Some of you, those especially who haven't collected the data, might think that I'm going to do this and I'm also going to do that, forgetting that it all requires a lot of time, and we do not have that much time. So feasibility, whether you will be able to achieve everything that you promise. No real research gap found, just general sense. Please, and this is the last one. When you're gonna write a written report with your results, especially for the pre-defense, you're gonna be required, in contrast to previous presentations, to come up with a written report. Microsoft Word, 12-point, Times New Roman, where you will basically write everything down. Please, in your motivation, in your research gap, address previous papers, cite these researchers who encourage others in their further research sections to explore this topic, this direction, or this direction. So my research is inspired by the calls from, and then you cite all these authors. This is how you do that. Double check that you have that in your research proposal, in your initial statement. So what you need to do basically is to go to these further research direction sections and check what they suggest, especially in new publications, especially in the publications of COVID, if you're doing that. Some of us are doing this. Inconsistency in terms usage. I would suggest that you, in the very end, when you come up with some written report, allocate it to some of your group members, or if you're working individually for your own, to look through all sections of your work and double check that you use the same ideas, the same terms that you're gonna have to use consistently. Please double check that you have everything, and please put plus in the chat that you meet all these requirements. Plus minus if you to some degree meet these requirements, and minus if you do not meet these requirements at all. For me, just to understand, where are we? Plus, if you meet all these requirements, plus minus. To some degree, minus, well, no. Neil, thank you. Maxim, thank you. Please take this as a checklist for you, especially when you're going to be prepared for pre-defense and defense. Okay, please do remember this slide. What is research? Research is our trials, our activity to create new theory. Theory is knowledge, and we could say that research is new knowledge. So novelty. Novelty is important. Novelty presents your theoretical contribution, which is going to be graded. Knowledge means laws, some universal laws. When we're talking about management, it's pretty much the same idea. There are specific laws, and this basic idea for these laws, X impacting Y, corporate social responsibility practices impacting company performance, let's say, or employees' satisfaction or customers' loyalty, right? So it impacts, it affects, and we have a lot of topics, meat and paper topics, that are designed and written as the impact of something on something in these kind of companies, or the influence or the antecedents of some phenomena. So we're talking here about laws. How do we get this new knowledge? How to prove that your research results are new? Well, obviously we need to have gap, and this gap is only based on previous research. So if it's not published, if it's not written anywhere, we cannot say that yes, indeed, it is so, it is true. But even if it is published, if there are contradictions, in what way? Okay, some people say that yes, there is positive impact. Some people say that there is negative impact, and some say there are no impact. Well, this is the contradiction, which could be the source for your gap. How do we get this new knowledge? Through inductive or deductive reasoning. Through inductive reasoning, what we do, we go from facts or observations, and based on these facts, we come up to some patterns, and these patterns then come up to some laws. And laws, you remember, is theory. Or vice versa, we already have some theory. Based on this theory, we derive, right, deduction, derive some patterns or hypotheses that we are gonna test. And based on this hypothesis about the relationship of our axis, well, we have x specific axis, we could come up to whether approving new theory or updating this theory. So this theory is kind of new, right? And this is also new knowledge. So this is new. That's why when we're talking about inductive reasoning, we're talking about qualitative methods usually. And when we're talking about deductive methods, we're talking about quantitative methods. What are the synonyms? Well, what are the synonyms for inductive, qualitative, deductive, quantitative? I answered this question. Could you answer my question? Inductive, deductive reasoning, please write in chat, or qualitative, quantitative methods. What are the synonyms, rough synonyms we could use here? Anyone? Well, I would ask everyone in chat to think and write for synonyms. Empiricism versus rationalism, Darren. Both are empirical. Please pay attention. It is important when we're talking about empirical research. What is empirical? Data which we could observe, right? Or in one way or another. Here, empirical data would be this data that we collect in order to test our hypothesis, number of observations, and so on. But here, facts, observations from our cases, this is also empirical data. And in both cases, your inductive, whether you use qualitative methods or quantitative methods, your chapter 3 is going to be called empirical part or empirical paper, despite, well, methods that you are going to use. Okay, so no, other options. Okay, you remember when we discussed philosophy, we were talking about objectivism paradigm, which is kind of scientific one, and subjective or constructivist approach. These are over here. So subjective, like the reality is dependent on our thinking. And the objective is the reality is independent of our thinking. Companies do exist independently from what, from how we think about them, how people think about them. Okay, like physics for objective and the subjective, well, social sciences, management 50-50. Also, when we're talking about inductive reasoning, from observations to theory. So from observations, we create theory. Ahmar, yes, you're absolutely right. From observation, where are you? Ahmar cannot. Ahmar, sorry. Yes, I see you. Yes, from observations to theory, building. And here, when we test hypothesis, theory testing, you might ask, okay, this is theory testing. In what way does it relate to new knowledge? Well, by testing new theory, we could update the previous theory, right? And in this way, we're developing the theory. So still it's new. Please do remember these aspects. Let me save this slide for us to be aware of. Okay. First paper, which is assigned what theory is not. This paper describes typical and usually related to typical mistakes which are made in theoretical research. And theoretical research is what you are expected to do. It strikes five major elements. Five major elements which are here. References, a bunch of references, data, and a lot of you, especially if you're working with some data provided by the research advisor, you might think that, okay, you're fine. No, variables, a set of variables, especially if you have a lot of research questions or a lot of hypotheses, there you might be at risk that this is not like the real theoretical research you're doing. Diagrams, conceptual diagrams, and hypothesis alone. Please read these paper, but with reference to only these five aspects for us to be on the same side. We're going to discuss it next time. And the next paper, which is what theory is not. Okay, what constitutes a theoretical contribution? What constitutes a theoretical contribution or basic elements of any theory? These basic elements or building blocks of any theory, this is what you are gonna do in your research, this is what you are doing in your research. Because in your research, you have variables, constructs, concepts. You're gonna read it, but I need to focus your attention here. Over here. Part of the explanation of social individual phenomena of interest. Two criteria exist: comprehensiveness, parsimony. Basically, you have your phenomena, let's say performance, and you want to explore financial performance and organizational performance. Or you are looking at innovative performance, and you could look only at innovative performance as number of patents. Or you could use some composite proxy, which includes different indicators of performance. Let's say, for example, this is one example. This is number one, building blocks, which are over here that you're going to explore. And there are going to be 7 questions that you need to ask yourself. Please use these 7 questions as the checklist for when you somehow refine your work. You need to understand and ask these questions. And the most frequent question, what's new, right? The novelty. But there are more questions to that. Please do read carefully because you need to be aware of, and these are the typical questions that committee members are going to ask you in one way or another. For example, they could ask you what's new, or they could ask you, okay, you've done this research, so what for? What for have you done it? Theoretical contribution, practical implications, or how well have you done your research? Whether it's empirically correct, statistically correct, whether all procedures and sampling is okay or not. And there are going to be other questions that you need to take into account. So look through these papers. I guess I sold them to you. Okay, research design strategies and methods. On the previous slide, I also asked you the questions, what methods do you know? From what we've discussed, for instance, in Darren's research, experiment and in-depth interviews. I also today talked about well, survey, about case study, single case study, multiple case study, but there are other methods which we are going to talk about, all these methods. And when we're going to talk about the methodology, all these things we could classify, and I would ask you specifically, when you're going to present on April, starting from April 18th, your methodology, to have, well, first of all, slides. I cannot write. I can write. Slides with your research motivation. So basically here, I would ask you to have your research goals, research questions, any model if you have, and then there is going to be methodology section where you have to put your research design or research strategy. And basically we're talking here about quantitative, qualitative, or mixed methods. In Darren's case, you're going to have here research design, and you're going to say mixed. And then you're going to say, as for quantitative part, I'm going to use experiment. And as for qualitative part, I'm going to use survey. Or I'm going to use not survey, interviews. Quadrant structure means that there are going to be 4 quadrants which are presented on the slide. Second, data collection, and we're going to look on examples how this is done. Data collection, and there you specify which data collection methods you use for which time period, who are respondents, right? Number of observations. If you are using secondary data, data source, database. If you are using survey, what specific scales are you using? So here you need to be specific. If you are using, for example, experiment, well, this is obvious that you are going to have experiment as the source for your primary data, right? And data, you remember, primary data that you collected and secondary data collected by someone, and this data you are going to use in a database, like or secondary data per se website, whatever. Okay, data collection, experiment. If it is experiment, you need to somehow, well, show us what's the experiment design, what's the treatment control group, number of observations, and so on. If it's survey, well, obvious, it's clear that's going to be survey. There is going to be questionnaire scales that you're going to use. But if it's, for example, case study, not necessarily, or I would say, it's not that it's going to be data collection as case study. No, for the case study, you could use secondary data, right? For instance, reporting or website of the company. You could have interviews with top managers or employees. You could have archival data. You could even run survey within the company, and this is also going to be source for your case study, multiple or single case study. So we need to differentiate between research methods and data collection procedures and methods. Then number 3, data analysis. And here in data analysis, in this one of the first slides, please do not emphasize Stata, R, AMAS, and so on. These are not data analysis techniques. Only applicable ones: correlation, regression, structural equation modeling, specific types. So regression analysis, correlation analysis, and so on. These are not research methods, right? These are data analysis methods. And operationalization. Operationalization or measurement. What does it mean? It means that you all have, in management, we have theoretical constructs or concepts. Let's say, and as an example, innovation. Later on, within our research, for example, we want to figure out the impact of corporate sustainability practices or sustainability reporting on innovations. Okay, and you need to measure innovations in your secondary data quantitative analysis as a research method. So from theoretical concept, we need to move to operational level or empirical level. Basically, how you are going to measure innovations in your regression equation, how it's going to look like. And for example, we are going to say that we are going to measure innovations as number of patents received in 2 previous years. So number of patents, okay, but we all understand that these innovations we could measure in a variety of different other ways, agree? For example, how could we measure innovations, Neil? What do you think? In what way can we measure innovations, except for a number of patents?
I believe depending on the implementations and the results of it.
Results in what way?
I mean, if it is useful, there are multiple innovations happening, but if it is useful in solving any issue, then that's a measure. That's a good measure, I believe.
Market innovations.
Yeah, you can say that.
And under market innovations, we mean new products.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. New products, number of new products, for example. Okay, what else, Maria? What do you think? We have several Marias. No, Maria, we have only you, Buglova Maria, as far as I can see. Innovations, how to measure?
I don't know what to add.
Any guess from general sense, general background?
I'm not very good at innovation.
Okay. Let's measure these innovations as the most widespread approach. Research and development expenditures. The more you invest in R&D activities, the more you get. So-called cost approach, right? Neil mentioned output approach, right? number of patents or number of new products, but we could also measure innovations as input approach, also possible. We could measure innovations, for example, as number of employees involved in innovative activity, or we could measure innovations as subjectively even. Okay, please indicate the degree of certainty with the following statements. We are innovative, we are ahead of our competitors, we have a lot of new procedures introduced, and so on. And this subjective indicator as latent variable could be used in our analysis. That's why, since we understand that we could measure innovations from different angles, it means that finally we could get, based on our decisions, either this or this or this, we could get in the end different results, agree? Different results. And our idea, your task basically in the methodology section, to justify also why have you selected to measure your independent, dependent variable as this particular measure. This and operationalization means what measures we're choosing, we've chosen for our variables, for our constructs. And usually how you do that, you are basically saying, okay, the majority of people are using this indicator, I'm also going to use this indicator. However, we're going to see that there are some interesting moves that people made in their research. Okay, coming back to structure. So these 4 quadrants, I would ask you to fulfill and include in your presentation during your own presentation of your own material. Research methods or research design, research strategy, or research inquiry, I use them as synonyms, which are different from data collection methods, which are different from data analysis methods, and, well, measurement approaches. How do you measure your constructs? And here, for example, you could say, and here it is important when you're talking about operationalization measurement, okay, please indicate my X sustainability reporting, how do I measure it? My Y indicator performance, how do I measure it? Logarithm of, I don't know, sales or return on assets. Whatever you choose, but please do differentiate and indicate them. Or if you have a survey, which scales are you going to use, please indicate. Okay, I would ask you for our in-group assignments to use this particular structure, quadrant structure, and it's going to be in the task to analyze, well, and fulfill, to use this as a template. Okay, if we are talking about this template, if we are talking about research methods, basically research methods for us all, we need to understand are based on types of data, quantitative, qualitative, and the data collection methods, primary, secondary. Quantitative, qualitative, well, obvious here. We discussed that just for a reminder what we're talking here, and as a reminder what could be done. Please pay attention to research methods, to mixed methods research. When we're talking about mixed methods research, we're talking about mix of different approaches. So it means that quantitative plus qualitative, or vice versa, or simultaneously, but combination of both. It means that here should be one of the research methods, and here should be one of the research methods. It's a trivial mistake, but I have to mention that literature, publications, analysis, and so on are not considered to be research method, are not considered to be qualitative or quantitative research method. Please be aware of that. As for qualitative and quantitative list of research methods, we're gonna talk a little bit later, but for you to be aware of. So please double check that indeed we are talking here, those who have selected mixed methods research, about them. I'm gonna switch some slides. In quantitative data analysis, we could have descriptive statistics and descriptive research, or inferential statistics, cause and effect, or causal relationship, causal research. Descriptive statistics is possible, but it is difficult to come up with new knowledge. Please remember that slide. New knowledge means laws, and laws are usually A causes B. This is the law, like the relationship, established relationship. That's why if you have only descriptive statistics, for example, innovation active, well, Maria is not about innovations. Let's talk about employer branding. Employer branding, characteristics of young professionals in Russia. And if you measure these characteristics and just describe them, saying, okay, everyone oriented on brand, on money, and on interesting job, and do not want to work in health damaging companies. This is a description. In description, we do not have relationships, we do not have laws, right? So please think about that. Descriptive statistics is okay, is an accurate portrait of reality, but we need more. Okay, strategies of inquiry or research designs. In general, we could divide them quantitative as numbers, and here we could say experimental research design. We're going to talk what is an experiment. Non-experimental design like survey, or secondary quantitative analysis based on secondary data. So I would add here, to be strictly speaking, as number 3. 1, 2, 3. Quantitative analysis based on secondary data. Well, because this is primary data, right? If we're talking about surveys. This is secondary data. Okay, for qualitative research, case studies would be our one method. Usually they're talking about qualitative analysis in general, which is based on interviews. And usually they say in-depth interviews, which could be structured, semi-structured, unstructured interviews. One of the widespread and widely accepted methods in management research, grounded theory, qualitative method for you to be aware of, ethnography, phenomenology, and narrative, more related towards individual experiences. Let it be number 4 over here. Let's talk about mixed methods, since there are a lot of people who are going to use mixed methods research. And I would ask you to select which of these methods you are using in your research. Those 9 people who have mentioned mixed methods research are maybe these people who are working in groups, but still. Maxim, yes, you can ask the question, please.
Yes, Professor. Hello, good evening, everyone. My thesis, as I already have said to you, is related to analysis of digital competencies of candidates for some vacancies, for example, for analytics vacancies. And I'm getting the data by parsing the Headhunter.ru website and analyzing the context of advertisement. So what type of research is it?
Well, it's a quantitative analysis based on secondary data. So you are using data that is there that you parsed, right? For instance, when they analyze websites, right, and parse data from there, it is also secondary data. So quantitative analysis based on secondary data. And if you are just providing a portrait, like historical trends and so on, it is going to be descriptive research. So basically, if we're talking about cause and effect relationships, causal, right, explanatory research. So double check there, what's your goal? It depends on your research questions, of course. But quantitative analysis based on secondary data, Maxim.
Thank you very much, Professor.
Sequential. Sequential meaning sequence, one after another. Mixed methods research, quantitative plus qualitative, and it might be plus, for example, quantitative or plus qualitative. Do not think that it's 1 and 2. It might be more complex. Sequential, quantitative plus qualitative, or qualitative plus quantitative. So first you do experiment or survey, then you do in-depth interviews, or you do in-depth interviews and then you do and get some insights, and then you design the questionnaire and get your survey conducted. Two different approaches. And actually, within this sequential type of mixed methods research, we have two different ideas here. What's the idea behind the first step? What's the idea behind the first step? Yulia Sashina, what do you think? First, we run quantitative research, and then for some reason, we do qualitative research. What for?
Maybe when we see some strangeness in our data, we can then use case study methods, maybe depth interview, and find some reasons of this strange data.
So we haven't confirmed some of our hypotheses, right?
Yeah.
And then we specifically ask these questions.
Yeah.
Okay. To clear out some aspects of our quantitative research, what else? What else could
maybe else when we can find something interesting in quantitative data, we should try to find in interview and other qualitative.
We're talking about illustrating these findings, right? Illustrating interesting findings, or maybe not that interesting findings, but illustrating how it works in real life. Possible, also possible. And my suggestion to everyone, those of you who use quantitative research design, in one way or another, please think how you can illustrate in your midterm paper and in your presentation how it actually works in particular companies or in particular phenomena, well, in a real business life. For example, green marketing concept. In real life, it is about what? How it looks like, or website narrative or animation research, how it looks like on this website with animated thing and not animated thing. Just a screenshot to show the product, the website, whatever, because it facilitates the understanding. And here could be not just illustrate, to go a little bit deeper, and qualitative methods are all about getting deeper. Okay, the second one obviously is different, qualitative than quantitative. Obvious one, to get insight, right? This is from my example, to get insight, to get interesting thing, contradiction, to explore the unexplored field, and then to design something, experiment, questionnaire, and so on. So just getting oriented, maybe more. This is about sequential. If we have two independent research questions that refer to different research methods, then we could say, okay, this is going to be quantitative research, this is going to be qualitative research, and we are going to do them simultaneously. Like concurrent means simultaneously. It doesn't. So in this case, we do not mean that first we are going to do that, then we are going to do this. No, just, well, concurrent research, simultaneous. What's important here, what's important for mixed methods research, is that we later on need to combine. It's not related only to concurrent research, but to mixed methods in general. Combine both sections. This is a huge mistake when you report and discuss separately quantitative analysis, then qualitative result analysis, and then nothing. No. Okay. By the way, it's 4 minutes, maybe more before the break. Double check that you fulfilled in Mira your topic of the research and your research questions. And I would ask, despite whether you have all your group, mini group, group mates or not, to fulfill this, because we're going to work with this thing later on after the break. Okay. For quantitative, so experiment, quasi-experiment, or survey, quantitative analysis based on secondary data, you remember from our module 2 classes, we had a look at examples of cross-sectional research design, correlational research design, longitudinal correlational research design, also possible. Do not forget about this option, and experimental research design. And we looked on the example of organizational citizenship behavior about that. Qualitative research, please have a look at these definitions. We haven't discussed qualitative research methods. Please just have a look and be aware of these opportunities for you to know them. Let's start with a case study. And here, like the basic definition of a case study: exploring in depth a program, event, activity, process, individual, bound in time. And there are a variety of different procedures. The main idea here, in depth. So it context that matters here in case study qualitative research. As you could see, context matters in all types of research, but case study being like the most widespread one. And case studies, single case study, multiple case study. Is there anyone who are going to use case study in their research? Please put plus in the chat for me to be, for me to know. Additionally, well-grounded theory, theory that we derive from the views of participants. For instance, in-depth interviews. Here we could use in-depth interviews as qualitative analysis. Maxim, I see. Phenomenological research, lived experiences, phenomenology, one's experience, feeling, and so on. Narrative research, narrative, right? Story. So story, lives, retelling experiences, ethnography research. Research studies an intact cultural group in its setting over time. There is a new qualitative method which is called nethnography. So networks, social media, right? Pretty much the same idea, but we observe social media behavior, pretty much the same idea. Please do remember like these types of qualitative research for you to know what are they. As for mixed methods research, this is the justification why we could use mixed methods research. Those who are going to use or those who are going to use or for the next year, please think about these reasons. Also, I would add that mixed method research design is a good way to strengthen your qualitative part or quantitative part. Let's imagine that you do not have that much data, you have very low response rate, which usually happens. So you could adjust and well, develop your research quantitative part with qualitative part or vice versa. Rules for research design and what we could select, obviously data availability, rules or traditions in this particular type of research, and other things that I mentioned here on the slide. Just be aware of them. As for the research process, it's constant iterations, but please do consider the workflow in quantitative study and qualitative and mixed methods research. In qualitative study, this is a constant iterations that would impact from the very beginning your literature, your research questions and empirical studies, and this is like happening all the time. In quantitative, this is more straightforward. Once you've done your research questions, your conceptual empirical model, then you run your research and discuss your research. So research design, if we're talking particularly about research design or research inquiry, research strategy, is the plan, the general plan on how you are going to answer your research question or questions. So this research design incorporates certain objectives that you need to achieve. It incorporates certain sources, primary or secondary sources that you are gonna use, and it also incorporates some constraints that you have, for instance, time or unexplored field or something more. Exploratory, descriptive, explanatory studies, descriptive, explanatory, discussed, exploratory, usually these are qualitative research for new phenomena. Exploratory research, like three principal ways which we could do that. For instance, interviewing experts and focus groups. Please do not forget that these are also possible ways of conducting qualitative research. Interviewing experts, conducting focus groups, especially in marketing. Descriptive studies, explanatory studies, research by design. So exploratory research design and explanatory and descriptive research design. For each type, we could have different methods. And for exploratory, yes, the major part is qualitative research. For descriptive, secondary, survey, or even observations. Observations, do not forget, always quantitative method of research. And causal, yes, experiments, but, well, quasi-experiments or surveys, usually we could also use them here as explanatory research. Causal or explanatory research, where we have our X, right, our Y, and descriptive here more about, well, what is happening with our X. And here also going to be our X, but in deep, deep context. Okay. exploratory and explanatory descriptive research, also more methods for us to consider, which are over here. Just please pay your attention. And in general, research strategy, research design, general plan about answering our research questions. The majority of you, as far as I understand, have explanatory, mostly explanatory studies, causal studies, once again, for quantitative research methods, experiment, survey, observation, and secondary data for four major methods. When we're talking about experiment, if you are from IT or marketing area, you might call it A/B testing. But in management research, we're calling them experiment research design. What do? We control or manipulate independent variable to measure its effect on dependent variable. We control website characteristics or features in order to measure its effect on customers' satisfaction, for example, right? Neil, yes, you please, if you have a question.
Yeah, just a small question. Can you switch back to the slide where you showed about descriptive analysis? Yeah, it says this one. It says descriptive is based on hypothesis. As I remember, when you're discussing with a research advisor, she said that descriptive is also about like when you don't have a hypothesis and you end up with an hypothesis. Like it works in reverse. But is it or is it not?
These are called as propositions. Propositions for proposition. You conduct a research, quantitative or qualitative. If quantitative, it could be exploratory or descriptive, and you say, okay, we've got such patterns, and we assume that there might be the following relationships between the phenomena. And these relationships we call propositions, because hypotheses are usually statements that we are going to check in our research. If we propose the same statements as the output of our research, we call them propositions. Also possible. And yes, indeed, it's a good idea to finish up your qualitative research with some propositions for others to take. And you might even face some research on this topic. Neil, thank you for your question.
All right, thank you.
Example of an experiment. It is important for me to talk about experiment. Others are, well, obvious, clear, because one of the groups today going to work on experiment and for us to be on the same side. To test whether an intervention can reduce procrastination in college students. So two groups, procrastination intervention or any task, and then we compare self-ratings of procrastination behaviors between students. For instance, we taught them stress management course, and then we compare those who had stress management course and those group and another group who hadn't stress management course. And then we compare their procrastination levels, subjective procrastination evaluations. And we assume that this stress management course and their stress management skills result in the decrease in procrastination. In marketing, pretty much the same idea with website features, for example. In qualitative research, once again, we could look at the definitions. So quantitative research methods, qualitative research methods. In experiment, we have more ideas, but let's look at the master thesis, which uses experimental strategy for us to understand what is going on. But here, even at this picture, we could understand the main idea. Two groups, control group and experimental group. In control group, we do not have this manipulation, like in my example with stress management course, no manipulation, right? And here we have this manipulation, and we measure this dependent variable, procrastination level, and we assume that this change in procrastination level is due to our X. That's the main idea behind the experiment. Because we kind of control for these conditions, but you have to be aware about the limitations. In social sciences, we cannot control all conditions. This is management and business settings is not a laboratory settings, right? It is different, and that's one of the limitations there. Okay, for survey, not gonna discuss that, but if you use survey, you need to be aware about structural equation modeling. Acronym structural equation modeling allows us to check very complex models. If you are in marketing, if you are dealing with latent variables that you cannot ask directly, for example, trust, whether you trust your organization or not, yes or no, you cannot ask such question, obviously. You have 3 elements, sub-elements within this latent question about which you ask, and then later on you combine them into one variable. So, and then by different elements, you can check very complex models, and this is in some degree similar to regression analysis, but more accurate one. As for the case study, you're also going to have case study. Those who are going to use case study, we're talking here about empirical investigation of a contemporary phenomena within its real life context using multiple sources. Multiple sources are important because it refers to the topic of triangulation. Triangulation, use of different data collection techniques within one or several case studies. We have 3 sources of data, and like in real physical situations, we could come up to some kind of generalizable, reliable sources, kind of these sources. Okay. And those who are going to use case study methodology, if you haven't referred to Robert Ian, like must-have manual on qualitative methods and case studies in particular, please do refer to Robert Ian case study strategies, because there are a bunch of bottlenecks there in this methodology. Archival research, not about archives, historical archives and so on. No, it's about records and documents stored in the organization. And this data product of day-to-day activities. Which activities? Emails, internal communications, minutes, protocols, memos, internal memos, and so on. These are archival research, which allows us, for instance, explore mergers and acquisitions, or explore crisis management steps, or some implementation products, or innovation processes even. So archival research is also possible kind of qualitative research methodology. So experiment, survey, archival research, and case study, forms of questions which they ask, and what kind of events they are applicable for. Also, please remember that we have different levels of analysis. In marketing, mostly we're talking about individual level of analysis, consumer level, for example, but in top management, it's also possible. For example, there are several studies who are talking about CEO's dark triad or CEO's personality. CEO, one person, but it's also related to management. Group level, also possible, top management or team or board of director. Firm level, this is like the most popular level in management research. Management is different from economics. You remember we discussed management is different from logistics, finance, accounting, microeconomics, microeconomics, macroeconomics. So it's different. Country or industry level research in management is also possible, but I would say that it is more about government policies. It's more about microeconomic or regional economy. So please be very accurate there. If you have country or industry, please double check that this is the management research that you are doing. Okay. So discussed everything. After the break, you are gonna work in groups. In these groups, I would ask you to start exploring the following task and replying to this task. All tasks are going to be in Mira board, so and there is going to be numbering. I will show it to you. We are going to look at master studies collection of GSOM students, because they publish, they have to publish recent publications, just for you to have a look at popular topics. I selected 5 which are somehow related to your research designs from what I could forecast and foresee. But you could just, and there is a link, the slides are available in LMS also, like course slides for day 1. There is gonna be a link, and then you could just browse and search, filter by the topic you're interested in, and see at potential research designs, how they well, formed their research, and well, specific decisions they made. 5 topics that I showed you previously. You're gonna work randomly on one of these topics, and in these topics, I would ask you to reply to several questions. Also, I'm gonna open to you right now this board. Next 1 to 2 hours in Mira, and there are gonna be available new frame. Let's make it neat. New frame. There are gonna be 5 groups, and the groups are gonna be, well, by numbers. So we're gonna have topics, we're gonna have groups. I will name the group order for you to remember so that you're there, and I would ask you to answer 4 questions. 3 questions. Well, first question is kind of large, and it's going to be about the quadrant structure. So I guess it's going to be extended one. And question 4 is going to be somewhat large. Let's make it larger. Please do not go outside of this table for me to really just go through these topics. And also, while you're going to do that, you're going to start doing that in small mini groups for guys, I have 2 tables here, but I assume that they are, this is the duplicate, right? Unfulfilled, Yulia. Please double check that you are working on this one, major one. And we have 1, 2, 3. 16. Evgenia, Yana, may I make you group number 1? Let it be over here, not 16, but 1. And overall, we have 15 topics. Okay, 15 topics, great for us to, because we're also going to have this assignment. Okay. So up to now, during the break, please double check that you have this group, that you have found your group 1, 2, 3, that you have links to these papers that you are gonna analyze, and And then after the break, we're gonna continue. During the break, you can ask me questions, but let me remind you that after the class, we're also gonna have some spare time, maybe at 9 already, I'm not sure about the timing, where I also will be able to answer your questions if you have there. So during the break, I'm also here. You could also ask me questions. Up to now, it's not 8 p.m. Moscow time. Let's come back at 8:10. I will explain to you the task. And then you're gonna work individual in mini groups on the assignment, okay? Okay, 10 minutes break then.
Sorry, Professor, I have a question. Maybe maybe it is better to discuss the task and the splitting groups now. So maybe if some people that are in a hurry, for example, yes, for me it would be better to finish earlier. So I would rather start doing it right now during the break. So maybe some of the people are also in such conditions. So maybe we can discuss it right now and split in groups, and some of the members can start now and some join later.
Maxim, I think that in no way we are gonna finish earlier today in one way or another. So even
okay, no problem then.
So yeah.
Thank you.
However, what I can do, Maxim, and those who are here, I will share with you group distribution, and I will input the screenshot here in Mira for you to know your group number. I guess this also could be for you to know whether it's group 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay.
Sounds nice. Thank you.
It's very small.
Can I ask while we have time? So I was in the list of the students who didn't submit something. And out of all the things that were mentioned, like Fishbone and literature review table and analysis, I do remember doing that, and we were presenting together. So
With who?
With Lisa Gavshana, she's from another group. So is there a possibility that?
Yeah, well, so you did that in Mira board group number 1 or 2, Stas?
My guess is the first group.
Okay, then might be. Okay, I will double check. I have a list, so I will just appoint you to the submitted guys. Okay, thank you.
So in case anything is missing, my mark is probably the same as Lisa's because we are together.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, guys, let's come back. Continuing with our lecture, please turn on your video for me to understand that you are here, that we can continue. Darren, Khan, Maria, Nalshad, Yulia, Ahmar, thank you. It's nice to see you as usual. Others, please also join us. Okay, what I want to discuss right now. Let me first explain the first task that we're not gonna do today, but in the slides you are gonna have the material, the justification for it, and what you need to do. Here we have research question and research topics for each of our 15 groups, starting from group number 1, Evgenia, Yana, and Ivan, modeling satisfaction of food delivery service clients. Your task would be the following. In the table below, just below the table that you fulfilled, this is the table that you need to fulfill briefly, but all together by groups. So group number 1, Yulia, Evgenia, Yana, Ivan, you are gonna start with this. You're gonna start here, basically. If you haven't mentioned group members, just copy or mention, copy paste them here. Group number that you're gonna analyze is going to be your group number, your number +1, except for group 15 who are gonna analyze group number 1. So I put you all over there. What you are going to analyze, your task would be to come up with two research designs for the research topic and research questions that you are going to read from the group. For instance, group number 1 is going to read group number 2 midterm paper topic and research questions, and you need to come up with 2 relevant, I would say most relevant research designs for this particular topic and research questions. Please do not go into details about what is specific, what does specific concept mean, just using general sense, but or maybe asking, or in Mira board we'll all have our presentations. You need to come up with 2 research designs. So basically qualitative, quantitative, and what particular method from what we discussed. You have a list of quantitative methods, a list of qualitative methods, and we discussed mixed methods strategies. And you need to justify. You need to justify the usage of these methods. Why do you think that multiple or single case study is useful for this particular case? I would argue that single case study is the least reliable research method, and multiple case studies much better. So you need to argue and justify. Or secondary data. Why secondary data? Why not survey, for example? And also for each of these research designs, I would ask you to go a step further and whether appropriate, right? Depending on method, there are going to be different elements involved. If you are going to use a survey or experiment, what constructs or variables that you are going to ask? For instance, green marketing exploration in Russian companies. Within this particular topic, you are going to ask in your survey about what? You need to specify who are going to be the respondents. Green marketing in Russian companies. Okay, we're going to ask clients or top managers or employees in general. You need to specify, or what cases you're going to use. For instance, IT employees relocation in Russian companies. What companies you're going in Russian IT companies? What specific companies you're going to ask? Large companies or medium, small companies? Well, I guess medium companies mostly. Or what particular respondents, interviewees you're going to ask? IT freelancers, IT juniors, IT seniors, or maybe someone else. So you have to think about that. How it is going to look like in general. Okay, I have, and how it's going to look like in general, we're going to discuss it when we're going to discuss this master thesis topics for you just to understand like how it looks like. What is also think, what is the number of respondents, cases, or groups for the experiment that you need? In what way? Where is the potential data source if we're talking about secondary data? So try to be specific here and just provide 2 research designs. Try to make them somewhat different. It means that no need to propose 2 surveys, for example, where you changed some independent variables, but everything else is the same. Maybe qualitative methods are appropriate here or might be appropriate here. Please think about that, but be brief. No need to go long. Besides, we have very small space here in the table, and I would ask you to stick to this table, which is over here. So groups and group designs that you're going to analyze. Group design 1, let it be here, design 1 and design 2. Design 2, so we're over here. This is number 1. This is for the home assignment for your well, traditional groups within which you work on your midterm paper projects. As for the current assignment, we're coming back to groups, and once again, I deleted this group distribution as far as I can see. I can see it. I will copy it once again here for you to see. Please stick to the group number. Stick to the group number. Here you have Ahmar and others in group 1. We have Alessia, we have Dolapo Marie in group 2, Eva in group 3, Khan in group 4, and Lisa in group 5. Okay, so each group takes the relevant paper. I'm not listed in any group. Stas, I guess, let me see. I guess you should be in group with 3 people.
Yeah, and in all fairness, I think my group has 5 people and there are 2 groups with only 3. So maybe you can move me.
I guess when I will open the rooms, then I will have an opportunity to assign those who are out of groups to specific groups. Okay, and we will see. Maybe it is okay with us right now, 22 people. It was 26 in the beginning. Okay. Okay.
Excuse me.
Yes, Khan.
Before we continue, maybe I misunderstood, but I thought for this task we were going to provide some analyze research questions of the other groups. Isn't this?
Yes. We have 2 tasks. Task number 1, it is over here, just below the tables that you fulfilled with the research questions. And we have task number 2, which is just near this first frame, where we have 5 master theses with different research designs, right? And there you are gonna work in these random groups that I divided you. So 2 tasks. And there below you have the table. Okay, if you are unassigned, I will assign you. Aha, Dalapa, you have with someone. Yes, please create number 16. Number 16. And then group 15 are gonna work on so please double check that everyone is there. Dalapa, yes, please add group 15.
Yeah, then I should probably add 2 because I'm in the right table, not on the left one. 17 then.
If you came later, then yes, Stas, then let's do the following. Okay, questions that you have to answer for the second task. These questions are the following. First one, for the analysis of this thesis, use the quadrant structure that we discussed, 4 elements, to describe the methodology of the paper. Please be very brief. Okay, question, for instance, experiment, 2 control groups, 50 people in each, time when the experimental data, when the experiment was conducted, number of participants for data collection, data analysis, okay, t-test or regression modeling, and operationalization. Okay, what am I X? How do I measure it? What is my Y? How do I measure that? This is the A question, the quadrant structure. So basically we're talking here about this particular structure that we discussed. How do authors justify each decision? If you have a case study when there is no operationalization, so this operationalization is only applicable to quantitative or mixed methods. If they do not justify how it should be done, for instance, in some papers there may be no justification. For instance, why do they use case study? Maybe it's better to use a survey. And for these methods, also please think about 2 different research designs, but in contrast to the previous task where you do have to do somewhat brief. Here, just think about, just use a very brief explanation. For example, survey, asking about HR practices, impacting performance, IT companies, Russian IT companies, or experiment, and then the design of this experiment and whom you are gonna ask. That's it. No need to go into details like in previous one. So here in D, please be very, very brief. We're gonna start this assignment today. I would ask you for the time that you are gonna be in mini groups to get organized, to think how you're gonna divide the tasks, for example, who are gonna take 1, 2, 3, or 4, and then you could work in your own tempo, fulfilling the table. Before that, let me draw your attention to specific elements that I think are important for us to understand and consider. Well, obviously, if you are working on, if you are taking one of these methods, or you're using mixed methods research, using qualitative part, it is a good idea that you have a look at case study or in-depth interview for you to understand, or mixed methods specifically, for you to understand how you could shape that in the form of a written report, in general, how you're gonna present it. for survey experiment, also how you're gonna describe the methodology section, but also all sections, right? You conducted an experiment. How do you come up with the managerial implications? How do you come up with the discussion section, literature review, how it is structured? I guess these are a nice, well, benchmarks for you to have a look how it could be done by students, taking into account that students' work, master students' work, are manageable pieces of work. You do not need to write them for 2 years, right, to publish. No need to do that. In the case study, please have a look, if you are doing case study research, how the chapter 2 is structured. You have case study justification, like in any method, you justify saying, okay, what I'm using, in what way, over here, what I'm using in what way. Company of research. It is important to select the right company for case studies. So how have you selected companies? Data collection, like in our quadrant, pretty much the same idea, how you collected data, what's the procedure. Respondent selection and data analysis. Please look at the description. The empirical part of the study was based on the case study research in a Russian subsidiary of a multinational consulting firm. This is about remote workers and COVID pandemic situation, right? Case study, what's the data collection method? For data collection, 5 in-depth interviews, semi-structured interviews with employees. And what's the result? Results of the study show the specifics brought by the pandemic situation. When they discuss the result, and it's a good way for you to structure your results section or discussion section. You have a research question, they have 2 research questions with sub-elements and data analysis results. 1, 2, 3, they have 10 results for research question 1 and 10 results for research question 2. These are the results that they got, and they use only single case study methodology for this part. Those who are doing this research, this is kind of interesting way of case study organization. We haven't started case study in details. This is a nice benchmark on how to do that. And please pay attention. Case study justification for this particular topic on remote workers and its effect on COVID-19 pandemic. They justify that they use case study. Please have a look how they do that. And how they do that. As for the table of content, this is the table of content, how your, in general, master thesis should look like. Theoretical chapter, and usually they name it, like induction programs for workers, COVID-19 pandemic, and so on. But still, research questions that are formulated based on the literature review analysis. So here, what has been discussed, results. I would do results where you, well, publish your results, say what you got, and discussion section separately, because discussion section is very important one. I would do managerial implications, theoretical contribution, and then conclusion. And conclusion would include limitations and future research directions. But, well, pretty much the same idea, 3 times 3, here it's 3 times 5, but that's the general idea. As for the qualitative method, interviews. So for the topic of talent management, I guess this is determinants of self-initiated expatriates relocation decisions. For relocation, they used only in-depth interviews, no experiments, no secondary data, just qualitative analysis. And in their second chapter, methodology chapter, what you have to present, they also have data collection, they have respondents that they have selected, and they have data analysis and how they did that. 4 stages, they describe how they collected the data. They had pilot interviews, and pilot stage is usually applicable. They describe the selection of respondents and where they got them, and then they did their in-depth semi-structured interviews. And they say that these in-depth semi-structured interviews as a justification for their selected method, this is a good way to identify the intrinsic need, motivations of people, and the topic is about, well, decisions to relocate, right? That's why it's a good idea to look at these, to use interviews in order to understand why they are relocating, why they are, in our case, if we're talking about Russia, that live in Russia nowadays in order to work abroad, for example. And you know that there are a lot of companies that are relocating their employees. Also, when we're talking about data analysis, it is also interesting when we're talking about data analysis for qualitative research methods. We're not saying, okay, data analysis is based on our structuring and classifying what our respondents mentioned. No, it could be done deeper. Please have a look. As opposed to quantitative research, in qualitative research, we need more time to gain deeper understanding. We use content analysis, and for qualitative research methods in data analysis section, in the analysis section, we do content analysis. We categorize, arrange data, and usually our data in-depth interviews a bunch of text, right? That we need to somehow classify 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and code these topics. But how to make them reliable, these results, and verify these results, and they cite the verification technique by Morse and co-authors who said that, well, we need adequate sampling and we need methodological consistency. As for data, and this could be achieved by saturation replication. Saturation means replication in categories by definition. So in our interviews, our categories, well, should repeat, and people who are relocating, they have to talk about pretty much the same thing. Please think about what could you name as your reasons to relocate. Health, economic, financial indicators, perspectives, interests, stability, maybe something else, right? And all people, if they mention that, this is somehow stable. And analytical replication technique. So we need to draw generalized conclusions. If the replies of the respondents match, we say that, okay, there is some kind of replication. Plus, we have to look at other cases, secondary sources, well, in order to make somehow stable decisions, stable results for the for our findings. As for the survey, please pay attention on, and I know some people are doing that, online grocery shopping and customer satisfactions. Some of you are using reviews, customer reviews, in order, well, to explore their impact on some outcomes. This is a nice piece of research on this particular topic. Look how they structure literature review part, where they have pandemic, COVID-19 pandemic as a situational factor that impact customers. Then, based on their literature review, only after they have conducted literature review, they come up with the research model and hypothesis, which are the result of this literature review. In chapter 2, methodology chapter, the same research design, sample, data collection. Then we have methods and data research design in survey. Follows quantitative methodology, quantitative methods imply data collection and analysis. There are 4 major quantitative methods, and for the purposes of this research, it was decided to use survey as a data collection method. This is what basically, this is justification. Why? Since it seems to be the most frequently utilized method, the most popular, this is one argument, and the most easy and convenient means of obtaining quantitative data. Easy and convenient. For secondary data, we could also say the most easy and convenient, right? If it's not like large parsing of data and then coding everything. But for online interviews, well, pretty much it very convenient one. Okay. In survey, we designed the questionnaire and we have to prove these questionnaires. Also, please pay attention that when they design the questionnaire, they use some validated scales, but they also used some scales that they developed from scratch. And this is kind of interesting. And if you are doing pretty much the same, please have a look how they proved these scales. You cannot use your own scales without proving them. And please have a look how they justify that their scales are useful. For instance, COVID-19 scale that they developed, but they say from scratch, but they say that this development is predominantly based on, analysis justification, based on secondary data. This is what they say. For data analysis, it is kind of clear that they are using factor analysis in order to come up with a short list of variables, and then they use a structural equation modeling that we discussed. As for the experiment, please have a look at how they structure the experiment section. They have pre-test, they have experiment itself, method, data collection, experiment design. How they did that with website features, well, pretty much the same idea. They describe the experiment, what is an experiment, what is pre-test, how it's organized. Please think about including, if you have complex structure and experiment have complex structure, visual support. Here they have extended experiment setup that could be used for you to show what you're doing. Simple experiment setup, and later on they're doing like extended experiment setup. Also, mixed methods research. In mixed methods research, especially in Ghana turnover, retention and practices, they have quantitative study, survey, 125 respondents, and qualitative research, semi-structured interviews, 22 HRs, and the analysis, quantitative test, multiple regression for qualitative test analysis, manual content analysis based on structured interviews. When you structure methodology chapter for mixed methods research, you have to separately describe a quantitative part, which we discussed, and separately qualitative part, which we also discussed. What's also important is that in the end, when you basically report the results of quantitative and qualitative part, it is important for you that you combine both results. Please have a look how they define the interviews method. Interview notes were made during the interview. Different probing techniques were used. The 3 major questions were asked. I would extend that this is what they have. And content analysis, codes, and coding technique is important in content analysis in qualitative interviews. This is it, the final result, comparing both studies. But I would call comprehensive results of quantitative and qualitative part, where they have that, yes, there are some intersections in the results, and this is nice, and these intersections are related to this, and this. And they have a summary model of what has been studied. Also, visual support is good. Up to now, what I propose you to do is that you start working on these lists. I came through major aspects of each method for you just to understand, well, the general idea how it is structured. But once again, you all have these 5 studies. Do not limit yourself to these 5 studies. You could have a look more in the link available, but also I assume that up to now you have read a lot of papers using different methodologies, and you already know what how to report methodology section. Well, do not forget that you've read all these papers, you already know them. But as a format, as a benchmark for you to be aware of, up to now, let's go to our task number 2, which is over here. For the next 10 minutes in your small mini groups, I will assign those who are not going to be in groups, but then please do write your names in the group members, just to double check that everyone is mentioned. Work on this assignment. Please answer questions. By the way, which questions? I will copy the slide into the mirror board so that you could well, relate to them. And after that,
sorry, I'm sorry to interrupt. So on the slide you have questions, or like not 1, 2, 3, but 1, 2, 3, A, B, C, D. And first, like, numbers are not questions. Am I right? So, I mean, as I read it, I can understand that that's not questions. Yeah. So.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, you are.
Okay, so that's fine. I understand.
Okay. Questions are over here. Questions are over here. 4 questions. 4 questions, including the last one, where you just need to come up with brief design. We've discussed them in details. You already understand what are possible options there. If you are ready, let me just.
And I also have a second question, to be honest. So, what is the deadline? Should we do it till the end of the lesson, or do we have any other time?
Now, the deadline for these 2 assignments is April 17th, midnight. So, no, not April 17th. The deadline is April 9th, which is Saturday, this Saturday midnight. Don't forget that it should be brief. Please classify the work, who's going to do what, assign each other, and then just do it in your own tempo. But please, Saturday midnight. Okay.
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 Professor, excuse me. Sorry. Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. So Neil has actually left the meeting because he was at the office, and he just texted me that he's having bad connection when he's traveling. And he's not.
I think that those who will have some issues, they could work with some group later, well, before Saturday, right? Because we're going to have only 10 minutes, and this is just the time for you to reassign the tasks, to get oriented, right? And then later on, he could join any of the groups and continue. If he's assigned, then, well, he already knows.
Thank you.
Get back to him. Okay, in case you have questions, I'm gonna join one group or another group, then you could ask me there. Up to now, I'm opening the rooms. You can join. Ikechuk, I will assign you to group number 2, and Stas, I will assign you to group number 3. Up to now, we have everyone, and I will copy questions as promised. Dear everyone, please join your groups. Akhmar, Ikechukwu, Maria, Daria, Eva, you all have the links right now. Akhmar, Ike, Eva, Dalapo, Nikan, please join. Akhmar, please join. Jawad. I will assign you to group number 1. You are assigned, please do join your group. Okay, questions. Dear Roll, how are you doing? Is everything fine?